Hellcat.
Logan turned and gazed around cautiously. "You come and teach?" Roman asked from the group. Logan looked back and shook his head. "Indeed." He jogged to catch up. Janice had kneeled curiously by a flower, and Patton joined to explain what it was. Logan noticed that Virgil was glancing around quite a bit, seemingly feeling the same uneasiness he was. He cleared his throat to get the shorter's attention, who flinched a bit at the sound. Virgil calmed when he saw Logan. Yeah?" he asked sheepishly. "You feel it as well?" Logan asked, gesturing randomly around them with his hand. The other looked at him in confusion. "Let me elaborate. Something feels off." Virgil understood. He'd felt as though they were being watched for a small while, a feeling he couldn't quite shake. The quickly setting sun didn't exactly help either. Yeah. He looked at the other four. "Maybe we should get inside." Logan nodded and patted Patton's back, making him stand with a questioning look. Roman took the opportunity to hop up to Virgil's side and throw his arm over the younger's shoulders out of instinct. "And how are you, my cloud of darkness?" he teased. That was really bad, Virgil thought with a smirk. "Fine, thanks, but we should get inside," the emo replied, ignoring the burning of his face. Roman hummed and nodded, smiling to himself at the slowly increasing amount of pink on the storm cloud's face. He was fairly surprised when he saw his brother, who had picked the yellow-orange flower, put it in Janice's hair, just behind the ear. "Well, I'll be," he whispered mainly to himself. Roman casually pointed at the two, signaling to Virgil to look that way. They chuckled to themselves, but didn't say anything, at least to Janice and Remus. "Ratman's got a crush," Virgil teased, in a hushed tone. "I guess he does have feelings after all." "This is so going to be great for blackmail purposes," the taller added. Virgil smirked and poked Roman's arm. "You better let me in on that." He nodded in response. However, Virgil's smile faded as another pang of uneasiness flowed through him. He pulled the other to walk faster in order to catch up with their friends, but really just wanted them all to hurry up. He wanted the feeling making his hair stand on end to go away. When they got back, Patton had an idea to calm Virgil's nerves by making a huge fort out of blankets and pillows that they could all sleep in. Logan and Patton were cuddled in one of the corners. Roman put on some conspiracy theory videos and shared his earbuds with Virgil. Remus was exhausted and fell asleep on Roman's bed as soon as they got back, unable to aid in the building of the fort because of it. Janice was tossing and turning quite a bit. Surprisingly, the couple lying next to him stayed knocked out completely. "You think they're dead?" Virgil whispered to Roman, pointing at the two. "Maybe," he whispered back and went to poke Patton's cheek. The boy sneezed in sleep before he could touch his face, making Roman recoil in surprise. Virgil also jumped back and laughed at them both. "That's it, he's too restless. My brother can deal with him," Roman said, leaning down over Janice. "Wait, what are you doing?" Virgil asked. Roman picked the creature up and turned to Virgil, smirking. "Helping my bro with his little crush." He set Janice on the bed with his brother, scooting them close together. "He's going to be a wreck when he wakes up," Roman chuckled, sitting back down. Virgil looked at Logan and his boyfriend, a happy little pile of interlocked limbs. Then at Roman, who was distracted by the video. He thought about the moment they'd shared the day before. He took a breath, closed his eyes, and decided to take a chance. Virgil planted a quick peck on Roman's cheek and looked back at the video like nothing happened. Roman's head snapped to him, his face already a deep red. "What?" Virgil asked blatantly. "What was that?" Roman stuttered. "I don't know what you're talking about." A loud scream made them both jump. "Darn it, video," Virgil thought as he turned the phone off. "What a mood ruiner," the older boy chuckled. Virgil huffed and looked away, his nerves catching up to him because of the unexpected noise. He wanted to find a hole to hide in for the next 5 years. Hey, calm down, all-American terror. "I know I am irresistible," Roman said, putting his hand to his chest. Virgil snorted and turned back, raising an eyebrow. Roman smiled and winked, making the younger laugh. "That's better. You good now?" Virgil nodded, trying to calm his giggles. "I think it's about time we get to sleep," the taller said, laying down and opening his arms so Virgil could join him. "Cuddles?" The response was a nod and snuggles until they both fell asleep, to which was awoken the next morning to a high-pitched screech. Logan jumped up. His glasses started to fall off his face. "Where's the fire?" Remus was on the floor. Janice was looking wide-eyed at him. What happened? Patton asked, rubbing his eyes. He screamed and fell off this cushiony rectangle, Janice said, pointing. That girly's scream was you? Roman exclaimed in surprise, rubbing his eyes. Remus huffed and stood up. Girly? I'll show you, girly. The older twin tried lunging at his brother, but was grabbed by the collar of his shirt by Logan. Hey guys? Patton was standing by the window gazing out. You might want to come here. Virgil joined the fatherly child by the window, gasping at the scene outside. There were men in cop-light suits everywhere, and Thomas was seemingly in a deep conversation with one of them. There were no kids or other counselors outside at all. What's this all about? The shortest asked, hoping that the others would have a likely reason. No one had an answer. Maybe we should go see, Logan thought aloud. Roman, Pat, come with me. Remus, Virgil, stay back with Janice. We should be right back. Virgil nodded and Remus went back to Janice, helping him off the bed so he could see what was going on. He was still a bit wobbly, but he was getting better at the whole walking thing. The three made their way to Thomas, weaving through the officers that littered the yard. What on earth is going on? Roman asked when they were close enough to the head counselor. Look, I'm not exactly sure, but these people have asked that everyone stay inside, so I have to ask that you kids go back to your cabin for now, Thomas answered, trying to usher them back. The man that he'd been speaking to prior snapped to get the boys' attention. We're here for a very particular reason. A dangerous creature that we'd been tracking for the last month disappeared around this area. Don't worry, we'll find and put an end to it, but if any of you see anything, you must tell me immediately. Got it? The boys exchanged a nervous look before Patton found his tongue. Yes, sir, thank you for protecting us. We'll go now. The man nodded and motioned for them to go ahead. They ran back to the cabin and slammed the door. What happened? Remus asked when they saw how on edge they all were. They're looking for Jan, Logan managed. Who knows what they would do to him. We need to get him out of here for his and our sake. Sea Creature stared at Logan, wide-eyed, and bit his lip in guilt. I should have stayed home, he mumbled to himself. Then none of this would be happening. Virgil didn't like the worried atmosphere that surrounded them all. From experience, he knew it wasn't long before it got to all of them. Since he didn't do well in those kind of situations, he wanted to stop it from happening. Okay, guys, we need to take a step back and calm down. We need to think about this with a clear mind. Worrying won't get us anywhere. He tried to sound logical and not to let his own stress show through. Logan took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. You're right. Janice, is there anywhere you can go that you will be safe? Janice rubbed his arm and looked at the floor, deep in thought. Finally, he replied, yeah. He told of how if they could get him back to the water without any of the men noticing, he could easily make it back home. However, once Janice went back into the water, his mother would know where he was, and he wouldn't be able to come back. My mother is very protective. If she comes here, she would definitely hurt anyone in this area. So if you leave, we'll never see you again, Patton gasped. It wasn't a question. We have to, Logan intervened. They all knew it was true. Remus, however, seemed to be taking it the worst. Roman put his hand on his brother's shoulder. It's so we can make sure he's safe. Remus huffed and grumbled what was probably a response. I know. The entire site was swarming with officers, so they had to find a way to make it to the river unnoticed. Logan watched how the men outside searched, trying to pick out any possible patterns. Virgil was pacing and chewing his nails, Roman and Patton trying to calm him down. Janice was half on Remus's lap as they sat on Patton's bed, talking to try and distract themselves from the circumstances. There was an opportunity to go. Logan knew that the area around the tree line leading to the river would be unguarded shortly for a small period. Now he just had to think of a way to get them out of the open and into safety of the trees. A good distraction would work beautifully, but that would mean some of them would have to stay back. He told the others of his plan and asked for ideas of what a good distraction would be that they could put together quickly.
Motion detected at the front door.
Sorry about that. I'm not good at editing, so that's gonna stay in. Back to the story. Remus was good at these kind of things. He had loads of ideas almost immediately. Though he knew he wouldn't be able to see the water dweller off, it would give him a chance to escape, which was the most important thing. He decided that that's what he wanted to do and stood up, calling attention. I may know a way. I'm not sure I like this plan, Patton hummed nervously. Remus was going to act like he'd been hurt, and Roman was going to also stay back to call attention away from the others, as Logan would lead them away to avoid any cops. Remus's original idea was to actually be decently injured, but Patton and Janice talked him out of it. As soon as the four started towards the tree line, Remus let out the most blood-curdling scream anyone had ever heard. Roman had to cover his ears because of how close he was. Really? He Whisper complained. Remus was just shrugged and focused on trying to make himself cry. Roman composed himself before running out frantically. What was that? Thomas asked worriedly, running up to Roman. A few of the other men following out of curiosity, weary of the scream. Remus got hurt. I don't know what happened. Come on, follow me. He winked at the four boys, who were nearly safely out of sight. The group ducked behind the trees. Janice shrugged off the lime green sheet that had covered him and slung it over his arm. The area was much cooler in contrast because of the thick shade. Logan and Patton were the only ones who knew the way, so Virgil and Janice followed in silence. Excited to go home? Virgil asked, trying to start up a conversation. Janice just shrugged. Sure, he was happy to be back home, but this was the first time he'd ever been out of the water. Now he was never going to see these kind human pups ever again. He couldn't bring himself to regret it, though. His time here had been nothing but great. Janice was slightly sad that Remus wasn't coming along. The last time he'd ever seen the strange child had already passed. Patton and Logan's hands were intertwined between them. The shorter was chewing the inside of his cheek. Logan rubbed his thumb over his boyfriend's hand in a soothing motivation. He looked up and smiled, giving the other a half hug and continuing to walk like that. They soon came to the dock, looking into the tinted water that flowed calmly. Here we are, Patton said, looking back to Janice. Friends? He asked, holding out his arms in a motion asking for a hug.
Motion
Friends.
detected at the front door.
They hugged for a moment before breaking apart. Logan shook his hand, feeling slightly awkward with a hug. Janice managed to weasel a hug out of Virgil, which he allowed because of the fact that he would never get a chance to do it again. Take care of yourself, Virgil sighed as he helped Janice lower into the water. As to you, the creature giggled. He plopped under for a second, and the water around him lit up as it had when they'd first met. His head emerged once again, and he threw a wet shirt and shorts onto the dock. Tell Ree thanks. Patton picked up the garments, but handed the shirt back to him.
Detected at the front door.
Here, keep it. Remember us, okay? He took the shirt and slid it back on. How could I forget? He smiled brightly before disappearing back under the water. Hold on a sec. He popped back up and handed something to Patton. It was 5 necklaces, each with a small, different-colored shell. Now you'll always have proof that I existed, he laughed. Patton wiped a few tears from his eyes. Thank you, Jan. Logan took Patton back up on land. Virgil waved with a small, sad smile, slipping on the necklace Patton had handed him. Even though the 6 of them would part ways, they will all be connected. Janice smiled back at them before turning and swimming away. Who knows, maybe one day? Virgil trailed off, but there was no reason to finish the sentence. Let's go back, the tallest insisted. We still have to give Roman and Remus their gifts. Hand in hand, the 3 walked back to the campsite, a feeling of accomplishment enveloping them at saving their friend. They'd each have a token of his experience, and just maybe, someday, it would call them back to the sea. Together.